"I'll bet you $50 million that this shy kid never wins a championship," declared tech billionaire Harrison Sterling during a private dinner party in Beverly Hills, pointing his champagne glass toward the NBA highlights playing on the massive wall-mounted television. "These small-market players are all hype. Real champions come from big cities with big stages." What Harrison didn't know was that he had just made the most expensive mistake of his life, and that a quiet kid from Canada was about to teach him a lesson worth more than all his billions. The date was December 15, 2022. Harrison Sterling, founder and CEO of Sterling Technologies, sat in the $50 million Malibu mansion he had purchased with pocket change, surrounded by fellow tech moguls and entertainment industry executives who hung on his every word. At 58 years old, Harrison had built a fortune estimated at $12 billion through a combination of shrewd investments, aggressive business tactics, and an unwavering belief that success was measured purely by market value and brand recognition. In his mind, basketball operated by the same principles as business. The biggest markets, the loudest personalities, and the most expensive contracts always won. "Look at the facts," Harrison continued, gesturing toward his guests with the confidence of someone who had never been wrong about a major prediction. "Oklahoma City? Population barely over 600,000. No major media market, no global brand appeal. Meanwhile, you've got superstars in Los Angeles, New York, Miami, places that matter. This shy character might put up numbers, but he'll never win anything significant because he's playing in basketball Siberia." The room nodded in agreement, not because they necessarily shared Harrison's basketball expertise, but because contradicting a billionaire at his own dinner party was poor social strategy. But Harrison wasn't finished. His business empire was built on making bold predictions and backing them with massive financial commitments, and he saw this as another opportunity to demonstrate his superior insight. "In fact, I'm so confident about this that I'm willing to make it interesting," Harrison announced, standing up and commanding the room's full attention. "$50 million says Shai Gilgeous-Alexander never wins an NBA championship. Anyone want to take that bet?" The room fell silent. $50 million was serious money, even among this crowd of ultra-wealthy individuals. Dr. Michael Chin, a venture capitalist who had made his fortune investing in early-stage technology companies, raised his hand tentatively. "Harrison, are you serious about this? That's a substantial wager based on predicting the career trajectory of a 24-year-old athlete." Harrison's response was immediate and dismissive. "Michael, I've built my entire fortune on reading market trends and identifying value propositions. Professional basketball is just another market, and small market teams with unproven leaders don't generate championship returns. This is the easiest money I'll ever make." Dr. Chin, who had actually been following Shai's career closely through his son's basketball obsession, decided to accept the challenge. "All right, Harrison. I'll take that bet. $50 million that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander wins at least one NBA championship before his career ends." The two men shook hands, and Harrison's personal attorney was immediately summoned to draft a legal contract that would become the most expensive sports wager in private betting history. But what Harrison didn't know was that his dismissive attitude towards small market success was about to be challenged by someone who had built his entire philosophy around proving doubters wrong. The news of the bet, while initially kept private among the Beverly Hills elite, eventually leaked to sports media through sources who found the story too entertaining to keep secret. When the story reached Shai through Thunder media relations staff, his response was characteristically understated. "I don't really pay attention to what people say about our chances," Shai told reporters during a routine press conference. "We're focused on getting better every day and building something special here in Oklahoma City. The results will speak for themselves." But privately, Thunder general manager Sam Presti was fascinated by the psychological implications of Harrison's bet. "Shai, you understand that someone just wagered $50 million against your ability to win a championship, right?" Presti said during a private meeting in his office. Shai's response revealed the mindset that would ultimately cost Harrison his wager. That just means someone's about to lose $50 million. However, what happened next would demonstrate that Harrison's business success hadn't necessarily prepared him for understanding the intangibles that drive athletic achievement. Harrison decided to conduct his own investigation into his wager, treating it like any other investment he needed to analyze. He hired a team of basketball analysts, statistical experts, and sports psychologists to provide data that would support his position. The report his team produced seemed to validate his concerns. Small market teams had historically struggled to attract and retain superstar talent. Championship teams typically featured multiple all-star level players, something Oklahoma City's roster lacked. The Thunder's championship window appeared limited by salary cap constraints and geographic disadvantages. "The data supports our position," Harrison told Dr. Chin during a phone call 6 months after their bet. "Small markets can't compete for championships in the modern NBA. This kid might be talented, but talent alone doesn't overcome systemic disadvantages." But Dr. Chen had been conducting his own research, focusing less on market dynamics and more on character evaluation. Harrison, I think you're missing something important. I've been watching this team closely, and there's something special about how they approach basketball. It's not just about talent or market size, it's about culture and leadership. Harrison dismissed these concerns with the confidence of someone who had never encountered a problem that couldn't be solved with superior resources and strategic positioning. However, what happened during the 2023-24 NBA season would begin to crack Harrison's certainty about his investment thesis. The Thunder's improvement was undeniable. They won 57 games and earned the 4th seed in the loaded Western Conference, with Shai averaging nearly 30 points per game while leading one of the youngest rosters in NBA history. But it wasn't just the wins that troubled Harrison. It was the manner in which they were achieving success. The Thunder played with a cohesion and purpose that defied conventional analysis of talent acquisition and market advantages. During a May phone call with his basketball analytics team, Harrison expressed frustration with developments that hadn't appeared in any of their projections. How is a team with this payroll competing with organizations that have twice their resources? Harrison asked. The Lakers have LeBron James and spend $200 million on their roster. The Thunder are competitive with a fraction of that investment. His lead analyst, David Morrison, had no satisfactory explanation that aligned with traditional business metrics. Mr. Sterling, we're encountering variables that don't translate well to statistical modeling. Leadership, team chemistry, coaching effectiveness, these factors are difficult to quantify but appear to have significant impact on performance outcomes. Harrison, who had built his fortune on quantifiable data and measurable results, found these explanations unsatisfying and continued to maintain confidence in his original assessment. But what happened during the Thunder's playoff run would force Harrison to confront the possibility that his understanding of competitive dynamics was fundamentally flawed. The Thunder's first-round matchup against the New Orleans Pelicans showcased everything Harrison had dismissed about small-market basketball. Despite having less individual talent on paper, Oklahoma City won the series 4-1 through superior execution, strategic adjustments, and clutch performances from Shai that elevated his teammates' play. Harrison watched Game 5 from his home theater, surrounded by the same guests who had witnessed his original wager. As Shai scored 32 points and dished out 8 assists to close out the series, the room's energy shifted noticeably. Harrison, this kid looks pretty special, commented Sarah Williams, a hedge fund manager who rarely followed sports. Maybe small markets aren't as disadvantaged as we thought. But Harrison wasn't ready to concede anything. It's one playoff series against a mediocre opponent. Let's see how they handle real championship pressure. However, what happened in the Western Conference semifinals would provide exactly that test. The Thunder faced the defending champion Denver Nuggets, led by 3-time MVP Nikola Jokic, in what most analysts predicted would expose Oklahoma City's youth and inexperience. Instead, the series went 7 games, with Shai averaging 28 points and 7 assists while matching Jokic's impact in clutch situations. Although the Thunder ultimately lost, their performance against the eventual repeat champions suggested that Harrison's market size theory might be oversimplified. Chen called Harrison after Game 7 to discuss the implications of what they had witnessed. Harrison, I know they didn't win the championship this year, but what we just saw was a 24-year-old leading a young team to within 1 game of the conference finals against the defending champions. That's not luck or small sample size variance, that's legitimate championship potential. Harrison's response revealed his growing uncertainty about his position. Michael, I'll admit the kid showed more than I expected. But one good playoff run doesn't make someone a champion. We'll see if he can sustain this level over multiple seasons. But what Harrison was about to discover was that Shai's approach to improvement was systematic and relentless in ways that defied traditional business cycle analysis. That summer, Shai's training regimen became legendary among NBA circles. Instead of resting on his playoff success, he identified specific areas for improvement and attacked them with the methodical approach Harrison typically associated with successful entrepreneurs. Harrison's basketball analytics team provided him with detailed reports on Shai's off-season development program, and the information troubled him. Mr. Sterling, this player is treating skill development like a tech startup treats product iteration, his analyst explained. He's identifying inefficiencies, testing solutions, measuring results, and implementing improvements on an unprecedented schedule. Most players train to maintain their level, he's training to completely transform his ceiling. Harrison had built his fortune using similar methodologies in business, and recognizing those same principles in athletic development made him uncomfortable about his wager for the first time. However, what happened during the 2024-25 season would transform his discomfort into genuine concern about his $50 million bet. The Thunder's improvement was historic. They finished with 68 wins, the best record in NBA history, while Shai averaged 32.7 points per game and won his first MVP award. But the statistics only told part of the story. Harrison watched Thunder games with increasing frequency, trying to understand how his market-size thesis was being systematically dismantled by a soft-spoken Canadian who approached basketball like a tech entrepreneur approaches innovation. During a January game against the Lakers played in Los Angeles, in front of the glamorous crowd, Harrison considered basketball's true market. Shai scored 45 points while outplaying LeBron James in what many considered a passing of the torch moment. Harrison watched from courtside seats he had purchased specifically to evaluate his investment, and what he observed troubled him deeply. Shai wasn't just statistically dominant, he was commanding the game's tempo and psychological momentum in ways that reminded Harrison of his own business negotiations. The young player was reading defensive adjustments, making strategic calculations, and executing complex plans with the patience and precision Harrison associated with elite business leaders. After the game, Harrison approached Dr. Chin with a proposition that revealed his growing anxiety about their wager. "Michael, I'm willing to discuss modifying our bet. Maybe we could reduce the stakes or adjust the terms based on what we've learned." Dr. Chen's response was immediate and firm. "Harrison, a bet is a bet. Besides, I think you're about to learn something valuable about judging potential based on superficial characteristics rather than fundamental capabilities." But what happened during the Thunder's championship run would provide Harrison with the most expensive education of his life. The playoffs unfolded like a systematic validation of everything Harrison had dismissed about small market championship potential. The Thunder swept their first-round opponent, defeated a veteran Phoenix Suns team in 6 games, and advanced to the NBA Finals against the Boston Celtics. Harrison watched each game with increasing dread, recognizing that his $50 million mistake was approaching its final conclusion. Game 7 of the NBA Finals took place in Oklahoma City, in the small market arena Harrison had dismissed as irrelevant to championship basketball. As 18,000 fans created an atmosphere that rivaled any venue in sports, Harrison realized that his understanding of market dynamics had been fundamentally flawed. Shai's performance in that game, 7 to 41 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds in a 112 to 108 victory, was everything Harrison's business success had taught him to recognize: strategic thinking, execution under pressure, and the ability to elevate others when stakes were highest. As confetti fell and Shai was named Finals MVP, Harrison's phone began buzzing with congratulatory messages for Dr. Chin and condolences for his own financial loss. But the most significant call came from Dr. Chin himself. "Harrison, I want you to know that this isn't about the money for me. It's about what we can learn from being wrong about our assumptions." Harrison's response revealed how much the experience had changed his perspective. "Michael, I built my fortune on analyzing markets and predicting outcomes. This young man just taught me that some qualities, leadership, character, work ethic, transcend market conditions and traditional advantages." However, the story was far from over. True to his character, Harrison honored the bet immediately, transferring $50 million to Dr. Chin within 24 hours of the championship game. But instead of sulking about his loss, Harrison did something that surprised everyone who knew him. He requested a meeting with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The meeting took place 2 weeks after the championship celebration, in a private conference room at a downtown Oklahoma City hotel. Harrison arrived with the same preparation and intensity he brought to major business negotiations. "Shai, I want to start by congratulating you on proving me completely wrong," Harrison said, extending his hand with genuine respect. "I lost $50 million betting against your ability to win a championship, and it was the best investment education I've ever received." Shai's response was characteristically gracious. "Mr. Sterling, I appreciate you saying that. But I hope you understand that this championship isn't about proving anyone wrong, it's about what we built together as a team and a community." Harrison nodded, recognizing the same humility and team-first mentality that had driven the Thunder's success. "Shai, I have a proposition for you. I want to invest in your foundation, your community initiatives, and any business ventures you're interested in pursuing. Not because I owe you anything, but because you've demonstrated the kind of leadership and character that creates long-term value." What followed was a partnership that would surprise the business and sports worlds alike. Harrison became one of the Thunder's most significant community investors, funding youth basketball programs, educational initiatives, and small business development throughout Oklahoma City. His company also hired several Thunder front office executives as consultants, recognizing that their approach to organizational development had applications beyond sports. But perhaps most importantly, Harrison used his platform to publicly acknowledge the lessons he had learned from his failed bet. During a CNBC interview 3 months after the championship, Harrison was asked about his $50 million loss and what it had taught him about investment strategy. "I learned that market size and resource advantages don't guarantee success if you lack the right leadership and culture," Harrison explained. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Thunder organization taught me that some competitive advantages, character, work ethic, team chemistry, can't be purchased or replicated through traditional business methods. The interview went viral not because of the financial details, but because it represented something rare in both business and sports. A public acknowledgement of being completely wrong about fundamental assumptions. But the most meaningful outcome of Harrison's experience wasn't financial or professional, it was personal. Harrison began attending Thunder games regularly, not as an investor analyzing returns, but as a fan who had learned to appreciate the intangible qualities that create championship success. During one conversation with Shai after a regular season game, Harrison asked about the mental approach that had enabled his championship run. How do you maintain focus and confidence when facing criticism or doubt from people like me who didn't believe in your potential? Shai's answer provided insight into the mindset that had cost Harrison $50 million. Mr. Sterling, external opinions only matter if you let them define your goals. We always believed we could win a championship, regardless of what anyone else thought about our market size or our chances. A year later, when the Thunder repeated as champions with Shai winning his second Finals MVP award, Harrison was in attendance as an invited guest rather than a skeptical observer. After the game, Harrison approached Dr. Chin to discuss the outcome of their historic wager. Michael, watching Shai win his second championship makes me realize something important about our bet. You didn't just win $50 million, you helped me understand that success isn't always about the advantages you start with, but about what you do with the opportunities you're given. Dr. Chin smiled, thinking about how dramatically both men's perspectives had evolved since that dinner party in Beverly Hills. Harrison, the most valuable thing about this entire experience is that it reminded us to never underestimate someone based on superficial characteristics like market size or background. Sometimes the most successful investments are the ones that seem impossible at first glance. As they watched Shai celebrate his second championship with teammates and fans, both men understood that they had learned something worth far more than $50 million. That greatness transcends traditional advantages and that betting against character and work ethic is always a losing proposition. Harrison Sterling had made his fortune by being right about market trends and investment opportunities, but his most expensive mistake had provided him with his most valuable education, that some forms of excellence can't be measured by traditional metrics or purchased with superior resources. And in Oklahoma City, where championship banners hung from the rafters of a small market arena, they understood that sometimes the biggest victories come from proving that heart and character matter more than size and resources. The billionaire who had bet against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander learned that in basketball, as in life, the most dangerous opponents are often the ones who refuse to be limited by other people's expectations of what's possible.